this is Faith, a Catholic unschooling coach, and I come to you on a Sunday, a very pretty snowy Sunday we're having here in Virginia. And I wanted to give a short talk, just sort of not talk, but share my thoughts on screen time and self-regulation as a sort of, as the unschooling philosophy sort of deals with it, with the idea of self-regulation. So I always had trouble with this, and I still do, because I just don't buy the premise that all children can self-regulate all the time. And I saw it in my own children. I see it in my own life. I think humans, we're fallen, and we don't always get it right. And sometimes our intuition is bad. And so it's not that I don't think people self-regulate, they do. And it's not that I don't think that children should be free enough to learn to self-regulate it, they should. But I just don't see it as this all-encompassing given for the way to raise your child. Because I think, if we were all really good at self-regulation, there'd be no bad habits, right? There'd be no gluttony, or lust or any of those other evils. So I went in kind of skeptical of it, and I never lost that skepticism. So let's see, how can I start with this? What made me start thinking about this was I saw somebody asking about screens on one of the Facebook groups that I'm still in, even though I'm not really homeschooling or unschooling anymore. Well, although I am, because I'm watching this little 5-year-old, but of my own children, they're all graduated. But I've just sort of stayed on these groups, and to tell you the truth, I don't pay that much attention to them, but every once in a while they come to my attention, and I saw one about someone saying, I don't know what to do with screens, they're taking over. And somebody responded and said, well, I can tell you all sorts of reasons why you should let your child learn to self-regulate, and completely ignoring the request by the parent, which was the mother, was help me figure out how to deal with screens, and instead saying, you're just wrong, you shouldn't try to limit screens for your kid because they need to learn to self-regulate. And then other people, including myself, came in and said, okay, because my thing is, at the end of the day, you're the mom and you're responsible. And you have to do what your conscience tells you. And but you want to be informed, right? You don't want to be reactionary. You want to be informed about, the different aspects of the issue. And then you make your judgment. And my judgment might be different from your judgment, and that might be just okay. It might not matter in the long run, or it might really matter. But in that time, with what you know and with what you're dealing with, you're trying to make the best decision that you can. And that's all anybody can do, right? So, but we're so prone to second guessing and being insecure about it all, and so I think that kind of lets us get talked into this certain ideology, and I see that in unschooling. There's this ideology that children learn this certain way, and that if you accept any other way other than what unschoolers put forth, then you've just been brainwashed by the system or whatever. They really invalidate a person's own experience. Like, I don't like that. I don't like unschooling as an ideology. I think it's wonderful as an approach to raising and educating a child. I think it's, but I don't think that, because ideologies, everything has to fit into the structure of that ideology, and if there's anything that doesn't, then you have to react against it. You say, well, it must be wrong, because it doesn't fit, it's not conforming with my ideology. And so that's the danger of ideology, I think. So, but unschooling, to me, respects the child's natural development, their natural curiosity, how their brain was designed to learn so that they can grow up and be self-sustaining adults. And unschooling, I think, really speaks to that. So there's, I embraced many aspects of unschooling, but I did not embrace this self-regulation. So so I think some children can self-regulate it in some circumstances during some phases of their life. And I have anecdotal evidence galore from my own 5 children. I have one child who could not self-regulate it when it came to TV or screens. He would literally, if you didn't limit him, he would do it all day long until he got a horrible migraine and threw up. And that happened more than once. So he needed, and he was grateful for me sitting down, telling him it's not healthy for you. It made him cranky. He got selfish. He wasn't a selfish kid at all. And yet all he wanted was to do that game or watch that TV. And so it became, he knew that things weren't right. It unsettled him. But he couldn't, it was compulsive. And that's the thing about self-regulation when it comes to children. They can't, things are addicting. The screen is addicting, right? And I find it funny that the same people who would never bring junk food into their house let their kids just basically be raised by pop culture and video games in the name of self-regulation. I mean, if they were really into self-regulation, they would let their kids go out and choose all the food that they were going to eat for the week or whatever, and then just let them, get sick on eating too many cookies and ice cream and, imperil their health, basically, until they learn to self-regulate it. But the thing is, sugar and that kind of stuff is addicting. So you get addicted to it. And then where's your self-regulation? You have to overcome this huge obstacle. I think putting that much autonomy on little kids to self-regulate is inappropriate for their age. They don't have this fully developed brain where they can make the same kind of choices that adults can make. And adults struggle all the time with making good choices too. So I think it's putting too much on the kid, and I think it's undermining the natural authority that that parents have over their children. Not an authoritarian thing, but just the authority that you need in order to raise and nurture a child. And so if you have the authority to say, no, we're not going to fill the pantry with cookies, we're going to fill it with good food that's healthy for us, you can say, no, we're not going to fill our time with screen. We're going to do things that are healthier for us. Can you have cookies sometimes? Sure. Can you do screens sometimes? Sure. But it's not going to dominate our life. And that was the thing that I would see with unschoolers is secular ones anyway, they would raise their kids on pop culture. Their kid would get really into something. And I did this to an extent too, but you don't want to do it overboard. Like my daughters both got really into American Girl dolls. I always want to say American Heritage because my youngest daughter was in the American Heritage troupe for many years. But they both got into American Girl dolls. Well, that was really fun. You learned so much history, and they got really creative. Especially my youngest daughter, she had her own YouTube channel. She would design all these different sets out of, she just reused so much recycling, like cardboard boxes and papers and all sorts of things to make these little sets for her little movies. It was quite creative. So, that's great. I know a lot of people, my kids never really got into Minecraft, but I know a lot of people's kids really got into Minecraft, and that had a lot of benefits to it as well. But you don't want to go overboard, right? I mean, I saw a lot of people really going overboard. And as a Catholic, I want to raise my child to be other-centered, right? Or to be Christ-centered. And I think if you really, really indulge in screen to the point where it is crowding out other things that are going on in the family, and it's doing things to your mood and your sleep cycles and all that sort of stuff, there's a line where it's not good. So I think it's perfectly fine for a parent to limit things that are addicting, that can be addictive, that you don't want to take over. I always wanted to be one of those parents that could say, okay, we're not going to have a TV in our house or whatever. But my husband would never let that happen. My husband watches a lot of TV, and he really encouraged game playing. So I couldn't do that. I never had that as an option. I always wished, it seemed like it would be so much easier. In a way, I use the TV a lot as a babysitter because, and video games, because my husband worked hours, 80 hours a week, and he traveled a lot, and I was single mothering it a lot, and I'm an introvert, and I got tired. I was sleep deprived for a long time. So I did use the TV and video games as a way to, pacify the kids so I could have a little time to myself or get things done or rest. So I wish I had curtailed it more than I did, but I did curtail it some, and I'm not, I don't regret that I curtailed it. I wish I had curtailed it more, because I think it's unhealthy. It's just not healthy for a growing body to sit in front of a screen for so long or just be so focused on this game, instead of going out and doing other things. And, like I said before, it can affect their mood. It can affect their sense of camaraderie with their siblings. So, it had a lot of downsides. However, it had good sides too. Now, both my daughters, while they dabbled a little bit in it, they didn't get nearly as addicted as my sons. But my oldest two, I remember, they sort of segued into other things. Like they really loved, my oldest son and my youngest son really, well, even my middle son too, really loved the music in a lot of these video games. And even in like cartoon soundtracks and stuff. And so they got really into that. And they're both, my oldest son and my youngest son are both musicians. My oldest son went to a conservatory and he studied composition and conducting. And my youngest son right now is going to college, getting a degree in music education. He's teaching music. So they both love music and they took to instruments. My oldest son plays the guitar and piano. My youngest son plays the flute and the piano. And so, they were very musical. And so that aspect of it, the musical aspect of it really, really spoke to them. And I think really inspired them to stick with the hard parts of things like learning to sight read and practicing and that sort of thing. So in a way, it was good there. Also, it was good for my oldest two because they got into learning about the companies. Because, the way they do these video games is they say, well, a new game is coming out, but you have to wait for months, sometimes years. So you're sort of tracking the company and these notices issued by the companies or these grand reveals that they would give about the new game. And that made them interested in the companies, and they actually learned about the stock market from this because my husband invested just a little bit of money into a couple of different companies, and they would go and they would watch the stock market to see if their stock was going up and down. So that was pretty neat, and that just naturally came out of video gaming. And then my youngest son got into, for a while, he was really into animation because of the cartoons and the animation in these video games. And so he was studying that. He took an art class. He developed his own cartoon characters and that sort of thing. So he was really fascinated by that. And then he also got really into Super Mario Brothers and even went to a couple of competitions where he actually won. Like he won a little bit of money. So there were really good things that came out of that. And it's something people can bond over too. If you really love the same game and you play together, it's a way of making friends. So and also it's our world today. So I don't want to reject it entirely, but I want to be honest and say that it shouldn't be all encompassing. It shouldn't dominate your life. There's a lot of other better things you can be doing with your time. And I just didn't think the payoff was worth giving up so much. And I also didn't think that children could I just thought it was inappropriate to hang all that self-regulation on your kids. I mean, I knew parents who were really into self-regulating and their kids would stay up all night long and then sleep all day. They'd be in terrible moods, they'd eat horribly, and you couldn't do anything. How do you schedule a doctor's appointment? Or you have to go, you're doing a play date with another child, so you have to leave that child at home it just doesn't bode well for a good family life, like a balanced family life. So and also another thing that a lot of unschoolers like to talk about is self-regulating for bedtimes. Well, like I said, I was single mothering it a lot. I was so tired by the end of the day. I could easily lose my temper. So I really needed that time I needed them to go to bed at a specific time so that I could rest and regroup and, get my own rest so that I could be a better mother the next day. So I needed certain routines to go on. And now my youngest daughter is calling me, so I will end this. And so happy unschooling, and I hope this was worthwhile. And she hung up. I waited too long. I lost my thread, my thought. Anyway, so these are just some of my reflections. I think you can be an unschooler and not buy into the self-regulatory thing. Though I think kids need to learn to self-regulate and you need to give them room to be able to do that. I just don't think it's this given all across the board. And I just don't like it when unschoolers kind of undermine other parents by criticizing them if they don't let their kids self-regulate in every aspect of life. So, all right, so that's it from me. God bless, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.